Hello everyone, this is my chapter outline for Kenneth Burke's Dramatism, chapter 19 of our text. We can define dramatism as life as drama, which reminds me of the line from As You Like It, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. Even if you are not familiar with that particular Shakespeare comedy, you have heard some iteration of that line. This short video is the monologue from As You Like It that begins all the world's a stage, setting the scene, so to speak, for this brief introduction to dramatism. Jacques is describing the 7 ages of man. We end our life, our drama, just like the helpless infants we were when we began.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. First the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. Then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.
It isn't a coincidence that dramatism echoes the work of Shakespeare. Burke wrote many essays and delivered many lectures on the work of the bard. Although 400 years separate the men, they were similar. Specifically, neither earned a degree from a university. Shakespeare, versed in the classics as a boy, learned through observation, and Burke was self-taught. And both were interested in the nature of humankind. Burke as a theorist, particularly interested in symbols, and Shakespeare from a financial perspective as a producer of plays. To provide context for dramatism, I thought that I would discuss the theory through the Shakespeare play that is probably familiar to most of us, Romeo and Juliet. I realize that our course covers the reality of communication between actual human beings, but this is part of Shakespeare's genius. He is the greatest writer in the English language because his work continues to speak to people of all levels, just as it did at the Globe. For the groundlings or the stinkards who paid to stand to watch a play, to the gentry in the better boxes. All of the characters, Romeo, Juliet, Lear, Puck, Ophelia, they are us. Okay, back to life as drama. According to the authors of our text, drama is an effective metaphor because drama covers a broad range of human experiences. Drama can also be categorized. Some episodes of life and our efforts to communicate are comedic, some are tragic, some are mundane. Some episodes, according to the authors, at least for some people, are the stuff of musicals. I have known folks who dance through life singing show tunes, and I envy them, but that's definitely not me. Finally, in drama, there is an element of rhetoric. The language that we employ in these dramas is used to persuade, to inform, to influence, to deal with our experiences. The authors present 3 assumptions: that humans are animals who use symbols, that language and symbols create an important system for humans, and that humans make choices. Now, the first assumption, that humans are animals that use symbols, reminds me of the opening scene of Romeo and Juliet. Two Capulet servants are making rude gestures, using symbols to antagonize two Montague servants. The infamous biting of thumbs. Language is symbolic, and sometimes the origins of the symbols are lost, but the meanings remain. I am sure you can think of some rude gestures that mean particular things, but the origins might have been lost. The second assumption is that language and symbols are an important system for humans. The authors mention the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that essentially a language affects or limits our perceptions. Long before Sapir and Whorf, Shakespeare considered this in the manner in which different characters use different language depending on the situation or state of mind of the character. For example, prose was used for everyday language, for servants or mechanicals, rustics, serious matters, and to express cynicism. In Romeo and Juliet, Juliet's nurse is a coarse, uneducated woman whose language limits her worldview. Still concerned with the second assumption about language, Shakespeare uses blank verse, which is unrhymed iambic pentameter, most of the time with most or for most educated, gentrified, or royal characters. Blank verse flows. It is an elevated form of language. It has the meter, but not the rhyme. But it's not too elevated to be ridiculous. Shakespeare also used rhyme, though, in his system. Characters offering advice, some wise, some not so wise, or participating in rituals, often speak in rhyming couplets, as do supernatural creatures. Friar Lawrence, in a soliloquy that foreshadows the deaths of Romeo and Juliet, speaks in rhyming couplets, as does Prince Aeschylus throughout the play, or his scenes in the play. The ability to use language is an important component of the plays. The third assumption is that humans make choices. In the play, the choices of Romeo and Juliet are described at the outset, in the prologue. The chorus explains the choices that the star-crossed lovers will make and what will become of these, or what would be the outcome of these choices. I'll go ahead and play that for you. It only takes a few minutes.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage, the which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend.
Okay, part of Burke's dramatism is the new rhetoric. The old rhetoric is strictly the use of language or symbols to persuade. The new rhetoric is more complex. It involves substance, the nature of something. When two people share this substance, that is to say that it overlaps, Burke terms this identification. Consubstantiation is an effort to increase this overlap. Conversely, division is a failure to share substance or to overlap. The basic Venn diagrams at the bottom of the slide demonstrate the identification of Romeo and Juliet. They share their youth, their naivete, their hormonal urges, if you will, and their disregard for their family's tradition of hatred for the other family. On the other hand, we can see the division between Mercutio, Romeo's friend and kinsman to the prince, and Juliet's nurse. Early in the play, the two meet in the city. The meeting is humorous, partly because the two are so different. There's no overlap. Mercutio is an educated nobleman, while Nurse is an ignorant rustic. Their division defines them and leads to a bit of comedy in a tragedy or a tragic play. Another aspect of the new rhetoric is guilt and the human desire to alleviate it. Guilt is a key motivator for action, and relief from this negative feeling begins with hierarchy or an establishment of order. This order is determined by language and the capabilities of language, which I discussed with regard to Shakespeare's use of prose, blank verse, and rhyme in a previous slide. The next phase is the negative, the rejecting of the existing order. Romeo and Juliet reject their existing order when they secretly marry. Burke also coined the oxymoronic phrase "rotten to perfection," which describes the closed-mindedness that accompanies our blind insistence, that we are right about something. Capulet, Juliet's father, experiences this rottenness. He is so convinced that the marriage that he has arranged between his daughter and the Count of Paris is the right course for her and for his family, that he destroys his relationship with his daughter. I have included the part of the play where he threatens to beat her for a refusal to marry Paris. The lines on the side that begin with "hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch," where he says his fingers itched. He wants to beat her. This is one of the most intense moments of the play. Victimage is another way we attempt to deal with guilt. Through mortification, we apportion blame to ourselves, as do Montague and Capulet when the play ends. There are only children dead before them. Alternatively, through scapegoating, we cast our guilt onto someone else. Friar Lawrence first experiences mortification when he wonders, did my actions lead to the deaths of these two young people? And then later he fears being scapegoated when he worries that people are going to learn about his part in their deaths. Fortunately for him, no one finds him culpable. When they say, "We still have known thee for a holy man," he's off the hook. Finally, the process of dealing with guilt ends in redemption. At the end of the play, Montague and Capulet end their feud and agree to fund a monument to their children. Of course, their price for redemption is high. Both their children are dead, and the cycle of guilt can begin again at any time. Also part of the new rhetoric is the model of the pentad, a method to analyze symbols or language, because language is symbolic. The agent is the doer or the actor. The scene is the context. The act is that which is done. The agency is the means by which the act is accomplished. The purpose is the initial goal of the actor. Burke added attitude, where the person sees him or herself in relation to others later. I would like to show you this video, but I'm going to run past my screen-tastic time of 15 minutes. But here is, if you look up on YouTube, Lizzie Hiscott as Juliet. It is not a bad version of the soliloquy. It takes about 3 minutes and is well worth the effort. But we can use this model. My point is, we can use this model of the pentad to analyze Juliet's state of mind and actions in Act 4, Scene 3, as she prepares to take the sleeping potion. The agent is a sheltered, not quite 14-year-old girl who has secretly married a young man she just met. The scene is her bedchamber. She is alone in the world. Her husband is in exile. Her parents have forsaken her, and her beloved nurse advises her to pretend her marriage to Romeo has never taken place. The act to take a potion is an act of desperation. The agency is a soliloquy in which, among other things, she is thinking about waking up in a tomb surrounded by the bones of her ancestors and the body of her cousin Tybalt. The purpose or goal, to feign death until Romeo can be recalled. Juliet's attitude, abject fear, love for Romeo, bravery, loneliness. I have included the clip or the screenshot, and please, like I mentioned, it's worth the watch. Okay, so as in all of the other chapters, the authors included a section covering integration and critique of the theory. The scope of dramatism is, by its nature, broad. Human experience is broad. Thus, so is the symbolic interaction. Some question the parsimoniousness of the theory, complaining that it lacks clarity, is too complicated, and is thus confusing. Others claim that this is caused by Burke's writing style. The verdict seems to be that one needs to stick with the material to understand it, because he does write in a very complex, compact style. Regarding utility, the major criticism cited by the authors of the text concerns a lack of attention to gender and culture. At the same time, one must ask if we can fault Burke for not addressing someone else's research concerns. Criticism like this always seems a bit puerile and anachronistic. If a theorist believes that a theory should accomplish X plus Y, then he or she should take up that mantle. As broad as dramatism is, it still cannot be all things to all theorists. Heuristically, dramatism has inspired research in other areas, including social media and professional writing. This makes sense considering the theory's broad scope. Well, that is dramatism in a nutshell. Thanks for watching.